Hi, I'm Chris with Visual Sorcery, and in this tutorial I'm going to talk to you about the timeline and creating queues. So the timeline is this panel down here, and this allows you to work with queues and adjust timings and just how things will flow over time. So I'm going to start by just creating a simple queue. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of the stage truss group here, and I'm going to set its intensity to be at full. And then I'm just going to add that to a queue. So I'll name that, just name that on. Alright, there's a queue. That was easy. So I'm going to zoom in here, and you can do that by scrolling on your mouse wheel or pressing plus and minus on the keyboard. And I'm just going to talk through basically how you work with the timeline. So if I want to move my position in time, I can click on the timeline either in a blank area, as you can see down here on the bottom, clicking the blank area, or up on the actual timeline, and that will set my position in time. If I click on a queue and drag, it's not going to set my position, it's going to move that queue. So if I want to adjust my length on this queue, what I can do is I can click on the edge of this queue and drag it, and then I can adjust my length. So say we want this queue to take 10 seconds. Alright, it's at 10 seconds. And say we want it to have a 5-second fade in. Well, we can do that by grabbing onto this handle right here and dragging it to 5 seconds. And you can see that right here. You can also see that we are between 4 and 6 seconds here. So there we go. We have a 5-second fade in on that. If we wanted to fade out our changes, we can grab this handle and drag it out here. And now it's going to fade out those changes. Alright, so let's talk a little bit about how the queue system in Lightforge works. Lightforge is a tracking console, which means that instead of storing all of the values for every light that is being displayed, it only stores what you've changed. So if I select this queue, you can see the only thing that's in here is the stage truss is getting set to 100%. Now, if I add in the floor lights here, and I'm just going to go ahead and add another queue here, and we'll just say floor on. And I look at this, it doesn't have the stage truss and the floor on, it only has the floor on, because that's the only thing that we're adding in this queue. So a good way to think about tracking is that lights are going to do what you tell them to do until you tell them to do something otherwise. So these lights in this first group that we told to turn on are going to stay on until in some other queue we tell them to do something else. And it gets a little bit confusing sometimes, but it's very, very handy once you get the hang of it. For instance, if you wrote your entire show and then found out that you had to have front light on a particular person throughout the entire show, well, on a non-tracking console, you would have to go through and individually add those lights into every single queue. With a tracking console, say I wanted to add in these front lights, I can just turn them on and update this queue, and then these lights are going to stay on throughout my entire show. I didn't have to add them into this queue, I wouldn't have to add them into any other queue. They are just going to stay on and be there until I tell them to do something else. Now, where this gets a little bit tricky is sometimes that functionality is counterintuitive. Sometimes you just want lights to turn on one queue and then you want them to go away. And that's not hard to do at all. It just means that in this queue now, say we want them to go away, we just need to turn them off and then add them to this queue. And now they'll be off. You just need to think through as you're creating your cues what you're adding in and when you want it to go away, and it works really nice. A nice side effect to this is, instead of having all of these different fixtures that are on to deal with in our cues, if we're editing them, we only have what's been changed in that particular cue. So it makes things much simpler to view. Alright, so I think you've got a basic understanding of that. I'm going to go through some of the more complicated things that you can do with cues. So right now, these cues are set to be hold cues, which means when they get to the beginning of the next cue, they hold before they go on. They wait for the user to press play to go ahead and go to the next cue. Now, if I didn't want that to happen, if I wanted it to just continue playing on the timeline, I can select this cue. I can right-click on it and hit follow/hold, and that'll toggle that. Or I can press the F key, and that will toggle it. And you'll see this is now green, and that means that when it reaches that cue, it's just going to continue playing, which is really handy. The next thing that I'll talk about here is subdividing cues. So cues within Lightforge can be nested within each other. So if I go ahead and hit subdivide here, you'll see it added in these two cues underneath this cue. And if I move this cue around, these cues follow it. So if I wanted to rearrange this and put this over here, I can quickly and easily do that. So when I hit subdivide, it took all of the values that were in my queue previously and put them in this first queue, and then it gave me another queue here. So say I wanted to go ahead and add in these. Actually, I think I'm already doing that. Say I wanted to change the color of these to be red in this queue. So I'll go ahead and do that. Just hit update, add to selected queue, and then as it goes through here, it's going to fade there, and then when it gets to this this next queue here, there we go, faded to red. All right, and say at some point I decided, you know, I don't really want those nested anymore. I'm just gonna collapse them. There we go, they collapsed back down to the way they were before, just on one single track. Next thing that we will talk about is we'll talk about audio, and we'll do that by adding in an audio track. So actually, just to simplify this, I'm going to go ahead and just open up a show that has this already set up. All right. So this is a more complicated show. This show has a series of cues. You see these green lines here and yellow line. What these are showing is that there are effects in this, and then you can see this audio track here. So now if I play back this this cue list, it's going to play the audio, and then the audio is going to be, or the cues are going to be synced with it. So it's really easy to set up really complicated shows now, because I can look at the waveforms and see exactly where a particular hit in the song is. I can scrub through the music on this, and it makes it really easy to set things up and make things work the way that you want them to work without a lot of tedious time trying to figure out timings on things. And I'll go more into effects at a later time, but right now all I'm going to show you is just real quick how you add an effect into a cue and how you remove it. So if I want to create a cue with an effect, I'm just going to go ahead and add an intensity fade effect. I'll turn it on, adjust rate, offset, and influence. That looks good. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and add that to a cue. I'm just going to name this test. Okay, and you can see now it has this little green line underneath it. That means the effect is on there and tracking through. And so if I add another cue, we're just going to turn everything orange. Add cue. I'm just going to name this 2. You see the green line extended underneath that. That's because that effect is going to continue going, just like when I make a change on, like in a cue and save it, the effects track as well. So if I don't want this to track anymore, I'm just going to turn it off and then hit update cue and hit add to selected cue, and you'll see it stops right there now. And when I get to this cue, it shuts off. So there you go. That is the basics of how you do that. I'm going to show you one more thing here, I think, unless I think of something else. And that is command markers. So command markers allow you to execute certain commands at a given point in time. So say I want to add a pause command in here. And what this is going to do is when it gets to this point in time, it's just going to pause playback. It's very simple. I'm going to go ahead and delete that. Now say I want to add in a go to time marker. So when I add this in, it pops up with this dialog, and we're going to go to, we'll just go to 20 seconds. So now as it passes this point in time, it's going to jump 20 seconds in, and that's really handy for skipping over sections or creating a looping section or something like that. So we can also do MIDI show control commands through here, and if we want to just do a label that says some additional information about what's happening at this point in time. So it's going to add that label right there. We can click on this and drag it wherever we want to drag it, and it's a very handy way to set things up. Oh, I did forget something. There are 2 modes of operation with the timeline. One of them is the normal mode that you would that we're working with right here, where our time is displayed in hours, minutes, seconds. The other one is beats mode. So if we turn beats on, now the time scale that we're dealing with is beats and measures. So we can set our cues up to last a certain amount of beats and measures apiece, and then if we want to change our BPM, a number of beats per minute, the tempo on this, say we change it to 80, now all of our cues are being executed slower. So it's going to synchronize our cue playback with that 80 BPM time scale. So I think that's pretty much it for now. If you have any questions, just leave a comment or send me an email, and thanks for watching.